How we doing? We about ready?
Just give it another 30 seconds. People still coming in.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, just, I don't want them to miss out on anything. Yeah, we've got about 70 people now. Okay. Kenneth, you ready? Jacob, you ready?
Yep, ready.
Okay, let me get started. Welcome everyone to this NFT workshop with Blockchain NYC, ETHBuilders NYC, and Blockchain Acceleration Foundation. My name is Jamil. I run the Blockchain NYC meetup group. I'm really excited to have all of you here today with us. We've got a really exciting session on NFT with Jacob, who's going to be leading that conversation for us tonight. If you are not a part of either of these three communities, I urge you to get involved. ETHBuilders is a fantastic community of developers with some fantastic content, and Blockchain Acceleration Foundation is doing some really great work in the education space. So I urge you all to get engaged with them. Follow them on Twitter and just go to their website. And Jacob is part of, he's an instructor with Blockchain Acceleration Foundation, or BAF, and I will leave it to Jacob to introduce himself in a few minutes. I'm just going to go over some of the upcoming events that we have. If you're not following Blockchain NYC, please take a minute, go to meetup.com/blockchain NYC and join the community. We're doing a lot of virtual events, and when it's a little bit more safe to do in-person events, we're going to go back to doing more in-person events. Hopefully, we may have an in-person DeFi event coming up in September. It depends on if we can find the right venue to host 300-400 people in a safe manner. Well, more on that soon. We just opened up a Slack group about a month ago. We have a bunch of people joining every day. If you want to continue and grow in your blockchain learning, this Slack group is something that I highly recommend that you get involved with. If you have questions about blockchain or cryptos, it's a great place to engage. All of the recordings that we do, for these sessions, we post it on the Slack. There's a specific channel called Video Library, and all of the videos are posted there. So if you ever want to go to any of the videos from a session, let's say like 3 weeks ago, the video is there for you. Okay, a couple of things we have coming up, and I'll make this pretty quick, and then I'll hand it over to Jacob. We have the Future of Ethereum series coming up, and really this is something that I launched because I got a lot of questions around what's going to happen with Ethereum and what's happening with the layer 2 world. So we've got the first 2 episodes, or the first 2 sessions of this 5-part series rolling out. The first session is with the VP of Growth of Polygon, who's going to be coming in and talking about what's happening with Polygon and what the future of that looks like. And then the second session is a couple of weeks later, after the 18th, is with somebody from Consensus is coming in to do a deep dive into Ethereum 2.0, like sharding and EWASM and all that. And these are really talks that are oriented towards the business folks. So it would be somewhat technical, but there's no coding involved or anything to that effect. This will give you deep insights into what it looks like, the future of Ethereum looks like at this point in time. And then we launched a DeFi executive series. So we're bringing in some DeFi execs to talk about what they're doing on their space with some of these major protocols. And we have on the 21st of September, the head of risk management for Aave coming in. She's incredibly knowledgeable about the quantitative aspects of Aave, and she's going to come in and do a presentation. Alexander's going to come in and do a presentation. And this is something that we're doing in partnership with Women in Blockchain, the NYC meetup group, Women in Blockchain. And this presentation was done a couple of weeks ago. It was a fantastic presentation that I asked Alexandra to come in and do it for this community. She goes, really deep into the quantitative aspects of the market risk of outing. Right? So this is like a 1-hour session, very, very useful. I urge you to really make the time for this. And we put it up at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's a 1-hour thing for those who have to get to work at 9. You can squeeze this in. And for some of the developers in the community, we are doing a developer session on how to use Brownie, which is the Python equivalent to Truffle. You may have heard of Truffle, you may be using Truffle, and Truffle is JavaScript based, heavily uses JavaScript. I'm not personally a big fan of JavaScript. I don't really like it. I can use it. I code with it if I have to, but Brownie is a similar framework that uses Python, so you can build Ethereum dApps with Brownie using Python. It has all kind of the build scripts and everything like that. And we have Hector Santana coming in to teach this session. So it's going to be a hands-on coding session on the 28th. So really exciting stuff, especially if you're a Python person who wants to get into Ethereum and want to leverage some of your skills. And then we have a secure smart contract. There was somebody earlier talking about hacking NFTs and things like that. We have Open Zeppelin, which is a provider of open source library for smart contracts and does all kinds of auditing and security around smart contracts. This is a 6-part series. There's 6 sessions. Session number 2 is coming up. We have the recording of session 1 on the Slack. This is somewhat technical. There's no real coding involved. The instructor, Martin, is incredibly knowledgeable of smart contract security, attack vectors, and all that, and comes and presents how to mitigate some of that and what to look for. So this is really, really good stuff. I urge you guys to, if you're building smart contracts, or if you are on the business side of evaluating whether smart contracts or auditing smart contracts is something worth checking out. And then we have session 4 of a 5-part course on how to do Solidity, how to build a smart contract using the Solidity programming language. Session 4, I think, is next Tuesday. And then we have session 5 2 weeks after that. And then we'll relaunch this whole series probably in the last quarter of the year for those of you that may have missed out and want to start from the beginning. And we haven't announced this yet. This will probably be in early October. We have Cosmos and Tendermint coming in and doing a 2-part session. Day 1 it's going to be business, and day 2 is going to be technical hands-on for developers on using Cosmos blockchain and Tendermint. Tendermint is a consensus algorithm framework and a couple other things. And so we really look forward to that. We'll be announcing the dates within the day or two. We've kind of agreed on the dates. We're just waiting for a few more pieces, and then we'll announce it. Hopefully, you guys can check that out. We just bought blockchain101.com. Wasn't cheap. And we're putting up, there's nothing really there. There's a couple of infographics. If you want to pick up some of these infographics that are there, they're high res. You can pick that up. For example, the Bank of International Settlements has a CBDC chart. And this past Sunday morning, I looked at that chart that they have, and I couldn't really understand it. It was really difficult to read, and so I just redid it. And this is that infographic that I redid. And you can just download it. So if you're looking to understand CBDCs or layer 2s and things like that, we're creating just a bunch of infographics and posting it up on blockchain101.com. And then DeFi Con, we had it this past March. It was a DeFi conference. It was the biggest DeFi conference as of that date in the world. We had about 5,000 RSVPs, about 2,000 people attending virtually. You can grab the slide decks, and we're posting the videos. I'll talk about that in about 30 seconds. And then we already announced the 2022 DeFi Con, so the RSVP, you can RSVP that for that now. We're planning to make it hybrid, so we hopefully can do it in person in New York City plus virtual. That really depends on a whole number of factors, as everyone knows. So we'll see how that evolves, but you can sign up for all of that now, right? So just go to DeFiCon.com and you'll be able to see some of what we're going to be doing in terms of sessions. Right? And we also launched a DeFi education page called Sci-DeFi, where the science of DeFi gets into some of the how some of this stuff in DeFi works. It's a YouTube page. You can get to it from this .com page. These are examples of some of the videos that you'll find there. We just launched it about 3-4 weeks ago, and we already have about 500, something like that, subs. And so it's growing pretty fast. Some interesting videos there, and we'll be creating custom educational videos on Sci-DeFi as soon as we can, hopefully in the next few weeks. Okay. All right. With that, I'm going to pass this off to Jacob, who's going to do his NFT workshop. Jacob, all yours.
Awesome. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So I'm just gonna pop open and share my screen here really quick. All right, if I can, let's see here. All right, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Okay, so let me just pull open the chat here because I'm gonna want to make sure that I can still see any comments or questions that come through. So feel free to just pop a question in the chat as we go along, and I will be checking the chat periodically to see if there's anything that I can help you out with. All right, so yeah, NFTs, the NFT Workshop. Let's talk about NFTs. As you all probably know, NFT stands for non-fungible tokens. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is what that name actually means, non-fungible. A non-fungible token, well, that implies the existence of a fungible token. And we're kind of interested in what that word fungible means. So if you were to look up a dictionary definition of the word, it would probably say something along the lines of, oh, it means something that's fungible is something that's interchangeable, or something that's fungible means you can replace it with something else in the same category or something like that. And when we apply it to cryptocurrencies, you know, fungible versus non-fungible tokens, you know, you get these two categories. What is a fungible token? Well, if we have a fungible token, that means we can replace it with any other token in that, like in that category, right? In that asset category. So that would be like $1 or 1 Bitcoin or 1 Ethereum, right? It doesn't matter which Ethereum you have. It doesn't matter which dollar you have. It doesn't matter which Japanese yen you have. It's worth 1 yen, 1 Bitcoin, $1. And that is how you denominate the value. It's just in numbers, right? It's one of those things. If it's non-fungible, that means that that the number of things is not really the most important thing. What is important is which one, right? So if it's non-fungible, that means that my $1, if dollars were non-fungible, that means that my $1 is unique, and it's not, I can't just swap it for any other dollar, right? If we actually cared about what the serial number on the dollar was, like, you know, you go and pay for your Starbucks order, you pay for your McDonald's, and you hand them $5, and they say, oh, we don't, you know, this particular serial number is actually worth $5, even though it says $1 or something like that, then dollars would stop being quite so fungible, right? Because now there's a sense of uniqueness to each dollar bill, but every dollar is just worth $1. So they're fungible. If we're looking at something that's non-fungible, it would be like a plot of land or a piece of artwork, right? You can't, like, yeah, you can attach a dollar value to a piece of artwork or a plot of land or something like that. But I can't just like willy-nilly swap two plots of land around, even if they're worth the same dollar value, and expect the result to be the same, right? They're not perfectly interchangeable. So non-fungible tokens are the unique ones. They're the side of cryptocurrency where if I own this non-fungible token, nobody else can own this non-fungible token. And that makes it kind of interesting when we go over to the Solidity side of things. Solidity, that's the programming language that we use to build smart contracts, to build these tokens, these cryptocurrencies that are built on top of layer ones, right? So Ethereum has Solidity. Use Solidity, it's a programming language, and you can implement a currency, a token, a fungible token, a non-fungible token, somewhere in between on top of Ethereum. There are other chains that support smart contracts, and you can, of course, build fungible and non-fungible tokens there as well. Let me just give a little quick intro to myself and organization that I'm from. So my name is Jacob Lindahl. Here's my Twitter, or my very fresh Twitter profile that I just started like 2 months ago. So please go give that a follow, @sudo_build. I tweet about nothing important, so it's probably not worth your time. But then the BAF network, that is the Blockchain Acceleration Foundation. We focus on cryptocurrency education and really big into like university education and accredited courses and stuff like that. And then one more thing I want to draw your attention to is hopefully you're still in the call. I had the pleasure of meeting an NFT artist very recently. So that would be the NFT artist at Clary Soul here, the artist behind the Lost Souls Sanctuary. And Clarissa, if you're still on the call, let me see here if I can find the participants and unmute you really quick so you can say hi.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi, nice to meet you. All right, so Clarissa, if you could just give us like a 30-second rundown of this project and how you got involved.
Yeah, so I randomly got involved through a friend. I didn't know anything about cryptocurrency prior, but on Sunday we launched 10,000 of these Lost Soul NFTs. So they're all generative, like it's a random background, random face, random outfit, random hat. And so there were 10,000 total. They sold out in like 2 hours. And I was the artist.
Yeah.
So, and we're donating 10% of the profits to charity. I obviously got a cut. It was a really great project. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being willing to come in and say hi. Yeah. So Clarissa was the artist for these NFTs. And when I mentioned that NFTs are like pieces of art, well, people, non-fungible assets, for example, pieces of art, people really took that to heart. And they said, hey, when we want to create a non-fungible token, we can just make art. We can make digital art and put it on the blockchain. We can tokenize it. We can sell it. And then it works just like real art, right? Because if you have a non-fungible token that represents a piece of digital art on the blockchain, you can write a smart contract that will uniquely assign that NFT, that non-fungible token that says, okay, this goes to this piece of artwork. You can assign that to one owner and one owner only. And that means that you can buy, trade, sell these NFTs for cryptocurrency, just like you would art for regular money, right? So that's what, when you hear of NFTs, like probably 95% of the time, people are going to be talking about like NFT art, right? So someone made some digital art and they put it on the blockchain and they're selling it, right? So you have these digital collectibles. And most of these digital collectibles you can find on a website like OpenSea or Rarible or Super Rare. These are all different NFT marketplaces. OpenSea, I think OpenSea, you can just kind of like feed it a ERC 721 address and it'll kind of like read the metadata there. But that's getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. So one of the reasons you might be here for this NFT workshop is because NFTs has been going crazy recently. So this is the Google Trends thing here versus my favorite music artist of all time. And you can see that NFTs have kind of surpassed him, unfortunately, or fortunately. I mean, like, it's a win either way for me. So we have these NFTs really peaked, it looks like, back in March, and then we're seeing another smaller peak right now. Right, I don't need that. That was my little art demonstration. Perfect. All right, so let's take a look here at OpenSea and kind of dig a little bit deeper into the technical details as to what is going on here. So I'm just gonna say explore, let's look at some NFTs here, look at all this beautiful digital art, and I'm going to click on this one, Crypto Sharks. That looks interesting. It's a funky crypto shark. And let's go down here into the details, and we can see here a contract address. Contract address. So when you write your Solidity, you deploy it to a particular address, and that address allows the contract to act pretty much like a normal person could on the Ethereum network. So it can receive tokens, it can send tokens, you can interact with it in particular ways, tell it to do things. Sometimes it'll tell you no. But yeah, so if we click on this contract address here, it'll bring us over here to, oh, it looks like this was actually deployed on Polygon, which is a Ethereum, it's like a side chain. So it's not exactly the Ethereum blockchain, but it acts really similar to it and has a couple advantages, like gas is a lot cheaper. So this was actually deployed on Polygon, but it's going to look pretty much the exact same as anything you'd see on Ethereum. It's just a little bit cheaper, and you have to jump through a couple of hoops in order to actually use it. You can see here so if this were Etherscan, it has the same feature. You can click on the contract tab right here, and you can actually view the source code behind the contract, behind the NFTs. And so let's see, it looks like this one, instead of doing like a dependency type structure, everything is all just in one file, which makes it a little bit harder for us to read because some of this is going to be library code, right? So library, and like, I don't really care very much about all of this. It's not super interesting. So we'll probably have to scroll all the way to the bottom to see something that's interesting here. Let's see. So transparent, upgradable proxy, that's not quite what we want. This might be a little bit, we'll have to do a little bit of digging to find the interesting stuff here. But yeah, that's how you would go about and see the contract source code. So I have pulled up a couple of different contracts here. Let's see, so CryptoPunk's pretty well known. Let's take a look at the Lost Souls one here. So this one is on Etherscan, and I've zoomed it in. So yeah, hopefully, oh, it's a little bit difficult to read. All right, I'm going to change back to light mode here so that maybe it's a little bit easier for you to see. All right, so here, this particular contract is divided up into a bunch of different files. So here, like ERC 721 enumerable. Now we don't care quite so much about that one because that's just implementing a standard, right? We could read that code anywhere. We want to see the Lost Souls Sanctuary contract right here. And so you see we define a couple of our variables here. We have a constructor. This is calling like a super method right here. Keep in mind, we're not going to be going through like all the basics of Solidity today. This is going to be more of like a little bit of a rough overview of how you would go about deploying an NFT contract. So we're not going to go through all the dirty details of Solidity. That's for some of the other courses that Jamyom mentioned at the beginning here. But here we have this like custom method right here called save lost soul. And I've never read this before. So let's see what this does. Okay, it looks like we read the total supply here. This looks like this is their minting method, right? So they've just called it save lost soul. Must have something to do with the lore that they've come up with here. But then save lost soul, it looks like you're purchasing a number of them, so 20 at a time. It looks like you can buy, and then it mints all of them to the sender here. So that's their mint method right here. Wallet of owner. You know, there might be some other interesting things here. Reserve souls. Okay, so you're able, okay, that's another type of minting method right here. All right, and then withdraw all, it looks like, so this minting method requires, let's see, save lost soul. So this is payable right here, right? So that means that you have to pay the contract, which is an address and it can manage Ether of its own. So you have to pay the contract a certain amount, and that is soul price times the number of souls you're buying. So the soul price here is set to be 0.03 Ether right here. So that means the baseline price for buying a lost soul is 0.03 Ethereum right here, right? And this value right here just gets deposited into the wallet that is managed by this contract. So then here, withdraw all, this function can be called, and and then it will transfer Ethereum right here to 5 different addresses, T1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And these, it looks like, were initialized in the constructor right here. So these are like team addresses, and then charity and other stuff right there. So that's just a little rundown of how an arbitrary smart contract works. We can also take a look at CryptoPunks right here. So if we just go look at one of these guys, see what his address here looks like, take a look at the contract right here, and they have implemented a whole market here. They have, and this one's a lot more complicated than the Lost Souls one that we just looked at. All right, so that's the image hash, going through, we'll just see. So all of this code is available publicly online, right? Because this is a public blockchain, and everything that goes on is public. And oftentimes people want to verify that the source, like, for example, me, maybe if I was like, I don't know if I trust this project or not, I could go and read the source code, because it's all available publicly online for most projects. Some of them, if they don't upload their source code, that might raise a couple of questions. But yeah, so you can see the ABI and other fun stuff. So that's just a little bit about how to explore a little more in depth how NFTs work on the blockchain. Oh, other fun stuff, things we can do here. There's like a read con.
Jacob, I think we got too technical too fast. Maybe we start off with like what's happening, what are the markets out there, what's happening in the space, like very high level, and kind of descend into like, so we got a lot of people that are not technical. So I would like get into the code a little later.
Okay, sure thing. Yeah, so we want to explore NFT markets a little bit more and just see what NFTs are out there and stuff like that, or what are we thinking here? Let me read
Yeah,
some of the...
I think we could start there. But like, I think we're getting questions around how is an NFT associated with an image. Okay. I think you move really quickly. I think we want to slow down a little bit and then just cover, I think, some of the high level stuff and then descend into the details.
All right, sounds good. So yeah, let's go back and explore some of these marketplaces that I mentioned before. So we have OpenSea right here, and OpenSea, like, I guess how I perceive OpenSea is it's kind of like the catch-all. I think most NFTs you'll be able to see on OpenSea, even stuff that shows up on Rarible. So if I look up Rarible here, Rarible is just another NFT marketplace. Want to be careful here because sometimes the art can get a little bit sketch, but let's see. Okay, Mr. Vector Man, that looks pretty safe. So let's take a look at this guy right here. And there is a place here somewhere where we can see here it is, view on OpenSea right here. So even these guys show up on OpenSea. The stuff on Rarible, just like that. Look at that. Perfect. And we can check out the contract right here. There we go. And see, here's our contract. And they have all of their libraries and stuff just pasted all into one file right here. And yeah, so you can explore that as well. And then the other one that I'd mentioned is Super Rare right here. And more NFTs here. So we'll just take a look at this guy here on the home page. And let's see, there should be some way here to view the address here, or maybe there isn't. Let's see. If I look at, well, they're selling it for Ether. So we can view the transactions here on Etherscan, and this will probably show us the contract in here somewhere. All right, so this is from a, okay. So this is from the actual Super Rare marketplace itself looks like. So super rare must have a little bit of a different deployment strategy, looks like, because they don't have these deployed directly, or at least they don't have it directly accessible here. So just doing a little bit of exploration here. I have most of my experience with OpenSea stuff because that's the most straightforward, talking about just run-of-the-mill ERC 721s. All right. Let me read through some of these comments here.
I think it's just, I think one point to make, I think is important to understand is that NFTs right now are associated with art, but they don't necessarily have to be associated with art, right? So people think that NFTs are art, right? But it's not. That's not the only use case. There are multiple use cases for NFTs. For example, you can use NFTs for finance, right? In finance, right? And it has nothing to do with art. So like the idea of an NFT is that it is potentially a bucket. It holds things and it can point to specific things that are unique. So a portfolio of let's say equities, for example, might be a unique portfolio. An NFT can point to that portfolio, right? So the whole idea why NFTs are really surging in multiple use cases is not because of the art. I personally believe that the art use case is not that interesting personally. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, I could be wrong. But there are a whole set of use cases around NFTs that are emerging. And in some ways, you could think of NFTs as the original way to think of token. The token points to a specific thing. And when you buy a house, let's say you get a deed, right? There's a transfer of title, you get a deed. You could think of that deed as an NFT. It points to a specific house, right? But that deed is a piece of paper, or maybe digitized at a registrar or a city register. But that deed in itself is an NFT. The idea that we can digitize something or something that exists in a digital format and it points to something unique is kind of that really useful, profound kind of way of moving forward, because most things in the physical world and most things in the art world are unique, right? The things are unique, and the currency is fungible, right? But then all these other things are not fungible. They're not. You can't like merge them, and you can't. They're not necessarily equal value of the same unit. So if I were to trade a house with you, so well, you give me your house for my house, you're like, well, I need to know what your house is worth, right? So one unit of a house versus another unit of another house is not equal. So so there's I think if you could cover some of the use cases around NFTs that are outside of art, maybe some of that, and then kind of like get into why NFTs are important.
Yeah, so one of my I have a couple of favorite use cases for NFTs outside of art, and like you mentioned, Jamiel, NFT art is great, and it has like its collectible and sentimental purposes, but that's more of like the fun side, right? And if we're talking about like the really deep technical or financial ways that we can use NFTs, it gets a little bit interesting. So like you mentioned, we could do it to tokenize like house deeds or something like that, or you can use it to really tokenize anything in the real world. If you have noticed, let's see here. So if we go back to Rarible, some of these collectibles on Rarible actually come with a real life something real, like physical and tangible. I'm not sure. Okay, it doesn't look like this one does, but some of them actually come with like a real life bonus, like thing that it's linked to in the real world, and it's not just a piece of digital art.
Yeah,
so
I mean, so one example is, for example, supply chain, right? An NFT token can represent a container that's moving from one country to another, right? That specific container and the valuation of that NFT may be associated with the ownership of that container, may be associated with the ownership of that NFT. So I think there are a large number of use cases outside of art.
Mhm.
You know,
Another popular one is like certification. So if someone took like a test or passed a course or something like that, or maybe was part of a university and got issued a degree, that is a unique document that's identifying a very particular specific thing. You know, this certificate, okay, it has the name of the participant, it has the distinction of the certificate, right? Like, so this is a master's degree or this is a bachelor's degree. So, and then it has like maybe the category in which it was listed. So this is a master's degree issued to Jacob in, you know, linguistics or computer science or mathematics or something like that, right? So you have these little bits of metadata that make this token very unique. And then, okay, we've issued this NFT. This is a certificate NFT. So now anyone can go to the blockchain because it's all public and type in the NFT and you'll see, yes, signed by this account, which belongs to this organization. They are certifying that this person attained this distinction in this degree or in this, you know, in this field, right? And that's another great use case for NFTs is certification. So we have certification, maybe like land assets or really any type of real asset, you know, like shipping containers, like you said, for supply chain. And then we have digital art, and since NFTs can also represent real tangible things, you could also have physical art also represented by NFTs. So there's just a couple more use cases. All right. Okay, just reading through some of the comments here. Okay, NFT provides digital scarcity for anything. Yes, completely agree, Tom. Can NFTs contribute to the wholesaling market in real estate? So I'm not particularly familiar with the real estate market. I just know that houses tend to be unique.
Yeah, the wholesaling market is a market of contracts. So wholesaling in real estate is the idea. It's a very different market. It's an active market, let's say in New Jersey and other areas. Typically, the way that wholesaling works is it's trading of contracts. So let's say I'm a distressed property owner. Somebody comes to me and says, "I'll buy that house off of you for $100,000," right? And then let's say I do agree to that. That person that wants to that's willing to buy, they put in a stipulation that the closing date is 90 days out. And so what they do is they take that contract and they sell that contract. So let's say they have an agreement for $100,000. They take that contract, they go to an investor and say, "Look, I've got this deal for $100,000. Do you want to buy this contract off of me for $10,000?" The investor says, "Okay, yes." And so then there's another leg to that deal. That contract is reassigned to the investor. And then in 90 days, the closing is between the investor and the seller. And so those contracts could be put into an NFT because of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So another question we have here, is there a typical life cycle of an NFT? Can it expire, change state, or be burned off? And the answer to all three of those is, well, yes. So you can have a NFT expire because blockchain knows about it has a rough sense of time. So it doesn't have a precise sense of time. You can't say like at this precise nanosecond, but you have a decent measure of time. It has to be obvious. Your precision is limited to the block time. So in the case of Ethereum, that's going to be 13, 14 seconds. And generally I would say you can probably trust the block time there to about a minute or two. Just like rule of thumb there, it can't be more precise than that. But if you're talking about like 90 days, yeah, you can have something expire, like mark itself as expired in 90 days or at a particular date and time. Can it change state? Yes. So you can, all that the ERC 721 token standard requires is a particular interface with a contract. So the ERC 721 standard just defines a particular set of interactions that a contract must support in order for it to be considered compatible with the ERC 721 standard. So that doesn't say anything about like, whether the metadata that is attached to the NFT has to be immutable. Now, for example, if you upload your metadata to IPFS, well, by virtue of how IPFS works, the data is immutable, or at least the data given at a particular identifier is immutable. But that's a feature or a result of using IPFS rather than ERC 721. So yes, NFTs can change state. And by burned off, do you mean can you send it to a dead address? Yes. And then it will exist but be completely inaccessible is kind of how that would work. So yes to all three of those questions. So what if I am not an artist and I don't have any unique collectibles to turn into NFTs? How would this tech be relevant to me as a seller if I don't have anything like these things to sell? So if you're not an artist and you don't have any unique collectibles to turn into NFTs, so you might be selling something like, well, you would be selling something fungible then probably. So maybe you're selling, coffee or something like that, where, okay, I have, 20 bags of coffee beans and they're all effectively the same bag of coffee beans, right? It doesn't matter which one you get, it's a bag of coffee beans. It might not be in your best interest to try and tokenize your bags of coffee beans. So this technology might not be particularly for your industry. But you could use NFTs to track like an order of coffee beans, because that's something unique and trackable. So that goes back to like the supply chain stuff. But for each individual bag of coffee beans, well, I suppose you could tokenize each individual bag of coffee beans using an NFT, because I take it back. Each bag of coffee beans might be unique because they might have a different expiration date, or well, okay, so they could come from different places. They could have been produced at different times. They could have different roast amounts. And I suppose like you could just give each bag a unique serial number, and there you go. Now your bags of coffee beans are unique. All right. So in the certification NFT use case, who is the owner of the NFT, the school or the student? So the school would be the issuer, like the school would be like the entity that deploys this contract that supports these certification NFTs, and then the school would send the NFT to the student's address or something like that. Which honestly, for certification, I suppose it might be slightly less relevant which address is considered the owner of the NFT, because all that the certification requires, I suppose, is that you have this data that says this person was certified here on the blockchain. It probably doesn't matter so much who's the owner. So maybe you say, okay, we have certified that the owner, this address, is certified, and then you say that whoever the owner of the NFT is certified, or something like that. I'd like to create my own marketplace. Where do I start? It depends on what you mean by marketplace. Do you mean you want to create a web application that other people can use to mint NFTs and sell NFTs? Or by marketplace, do you mean I want to create a bunch of NFTs to sell, like CryptoPunks? Like I want to issue 10,000 of my new pieces of art and sell those on a marketplace. So if you're talking about the former, that's very complicated and involved. And if I could tell you how to do that in an hour, I'd probably charge you a lot of money. But I can't tell you how to do that in an hour. If we're talking about issuing like 10,000 or whatever of my own unique NFTs, that's a little bit more up our alley, and we can get into that I suppose it depends on how time works out and how technical we want to get. I do have materials on that prepared. It's just whether we can get there in enough time. All right, if you own a NFT for a physical asset, who manages ownership of the asset? If someone steals the physical asset and you still own the digital NFT, how does it affect the value of the physical asset of the NFT? What would the solution be to get both physical and digital asset in your possession? So unfortunately, as much as I wish the blockchain could actually manage the physical world, the blockchain it kind of exists in its own little vacuum here. It's a very it's only virtual. You're going to have to enforce what a smart contract can't enforce in the physical world by some other means. I mean, as much as I would love for it to happen, we can't have, the smart contract isn't going to, call the police and try and get the thief to return your physical asset. So you might be a little bit stuck there if the physical asset gets stolen. That's a little bit outside of the scope of what a blockchain or a smart contract is capable of. Let's see here. Above and beyond the standard ERC 721 interface requirements, we would need to build additional methods to cater to specific use case. Okay. That's just a response. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions here? If you want non-repudiation, provenance, ownership, then use an NFT. Yes. If you want utility from a system, then use a fungible token like an ERC 20. That sounds like a reasonable rule of thumb to me. Yeah, provenance, ownership is actually, I think that's something that Lost Souls contract implemented here. Hold on. Soul provenance. Is that? Okay. Let's see here. I think they have that in here somewhere. Can I read this value here or no? Or it's just empty? Okay. Well, is that on this tracker here? Maybe. No. Okay. Well, regardless. Yeah, that's something that you'll see in NFTs from now and again. Can you make a NFT out of a picture of a donation and track that NFT as it travels from donor to recipient? Of a donation, so like a picture of a donation, like of money. Like if I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you make an NFT out of a picture of a donation and track that NFT as it travels from donor to recipient? I mean, you can make an NFT of a picture, yes. And since we know that we can update the metadata that is associated with an NFT, yes, you can track the status of that. All right. Where would you go to auction off an NFT? Rareable, OpenSea, super rare. Those are the three that I've been talking about. There are others whose names I don't know. If I want to create on OpenSea, how do I proceed? This will be fun. So let's do that. Let's click on create. We'll say sign in. You have to have MetaMask installed. Does everyone here know what MetaMask is? This is just a dummy account, by the way. So there's no Ethereum attached to this. All right. Yes, sign in. All right. So then here, actually, I might want to do this on a test network. Oh, we'll see what it has to say. So I'm just gonna come over here and find a picture. Let's see, pictures. All right, so I'll upload this as my desktop background right now. Just say background, and then you can give it a link, a metadata link, or no, not a metadata link. This is a web page link, I suppose. OpenSea will manage the metadata for you. So this is just a link that's associated with it. I don't have to put anything here. That's a Blockchain Acceleration Foundation website, description, my fancy token, collection. I don't think I need to put anything in here. I think I can leave that empty. Unlockable content. No, we don't need that. All right, number of copies, just one. Blockchain, Ethereum, or we can mint it on Polygon, like we were talking about before. Cool. Let's say create. Wow, look at that. All right, now this is not minted yet. So here, if I'm going to mint, then the price will be like 0.05. Privacy, okay, whatever. And then if I say post, then it's going to have me. So I don't have any Ethereum here, but this is how I would. This is how you would end up minting an NFT on OpenSea. It's very straightforward, right? But I don't have any Ethereum attached to this wallet, so I can't actually do it. Insufficient funds because I'm poor. This is just not my. This is just a fake wallet that I created for the sake of this workshop and didn't add any Ethereum to it. Right, so that's how you go about minting an NFT. It's on OpenSea. It's very, very easy. And you literally just upload your image, type in your metadata, and press mint, basically. Right. So for auctions, okay. All right. Where is the best place to lodge any intellectual property rights or restrictions that might accompany a particular NFT in the smart contract and or a linked off-chain oracle? So if you want to, so it's pretty much we're talking about the metadata right here. And let me explain what I mean when I say metadata. So when at its very most basic, all that an NFT is it's a contract that maps from a number, which is the ID of the NFT, to an address of an owner, and with an optional link to metadata. That's all that an NFT is on chain. What that link to metadata can be is just like any other link on the internet. So it could be an IPFS link, we'll talk about that in a little bit, or it could be just a regular hyperlink to a web page, a special type of web page that contains information structured in a particular way so that it's compatible with the standard. And that is where you put all of the extra data. You don't actually put all of the extra data directly on chain. You usually put all of that extra metadata, like, if this is a piece of art, here, let's actually, I have the metadata standard pulled up right here. This is a guide from OpenSea. So I'll zoom in so you guys can read. Metadata structure. So this is the information that is off chain, right? So you'll have a description, you'll have the name of the NFT, you'll have a description of the NFT. And this is just a free text field. You can put anything you want in there. Same thing with the name. You can have an image associated with the NFT, right? So this would be like if we're selling NFT art, there's actually a couple of layers of indirection here, or redirection or something like that. You have what's on chain is the mapping from the ID of the NFT to the owner of the NFT and the link to the metadata file. Then we look up this metadata file and we see, okay, there's an image attached to it. So then we look up this URL, and that's where that's where the image attached to an NFT is actually stored. So there's a couple layers of indirection there. Was everyone able to follow that? Hopefully.
So I mean, we're getting a couple more questions. I think, Jacob, let me just step in here and answer one or two questions, and maybe I don't know if you have a presentation that you want to go through, just kind of get ready for that. But I see some questions like regarding, I think like the essence of what an NFT is, and what is an NFT and how does it relate to an Oracle? For example, can I use an NFT to develop an architecture and agriculture project? So I worked on an agriculture project for Haiti through the World Bank 2 years ago, 2019, and I was actually there. And there was a time where I went to Haiti twice, and there was a time I almost couldn't get out because of the violence. There was people running in like pickup trucks with gun turrets on the hoods. But so we built something that used NFT, right? So the NFT in an agriculture project could represent anything that is uniquely identifiable. So if I take a barrel of oil, let's say I take a barrel of oil, there's nothing uniquely identifiable for that barrel of oil with another barrel of oil. Like I can pour the two with each other, and you would not know that I can take, a gallon from one barrel and pour it into the other barrel, and a gallon from the other barrel. They're interchangeable. You have to find something that's uniquely identifiable. That could be you put a QR code on the barrel, but there's some issues with that. People can swap QR codes and things like that. So as rigid as you can make that identifier, meaning not swappable and things like that, becomes important. So when you're designing a system where you're going to use NFTs, right? In the art world, it's simply NFT points to what is effectively a Dropbox link. And as you know, if you share a Dropbox file or you share a Google Drive file, you share a link with somebody, that link is unique, right? Clicking on that link will take you to one and only one file. It won't take you to any other file. And so the IPFS, which is a decentralized Dropbox, if you will, you store something on there, will give you this URL that's unique, and you take that URL and you embed it in an NFT token, right? And that's easy to do because it's all digital end to end, right? The whatever file that you're putting in, it could be artwork, JPEG, a JPEG. It could be a deed to a house, whatever you want. You're putting it on the IPFS decentralized Dropbox, right? You get this URL. It gives you back a URL at the minute you put it. You get that URL, kind of like a receipt, and then you are able to then put that URL inside an NFT token. And whenever that NFT token trades, if I have it, I give it to you. It's still pointing to the same file, or it's still pointing to the same image. Now, if I want to bring that into different use cases, then there are different challenges and issues with that. If I bring it into the real world, where it's pointing to real world assets, right? Like let's say a bushel of wheat, right? Then what I have to figure out is that bushel of wheat or that barrel of oil or that shipping container, that 20-foot shipping container, whatever that may be. I need a unique way to identify that. And I need a way to identify that is difficult to forge, and it's difficult to interchange and difficult to modify, right? And that is potentially some issue. There are some issues there because people can scrub off a serial number and put a different serial number. And if you know about cars, the VIN, in New York City or in the US, there's a concept of a VIN number, a vehicle identification number. These things get forged and all that kind of stuff. Yes, there's a cost to that. It's not easy to do, but it's possible. So to bring NFTs into the physical world, such that an NFT points to a physical element, that requires a legal infrastructure. You got to have legal infrastructure around that, so that those things, if they're violated, there's recourse, right? So, but that's a topic for a different time, right? But you can apply it to scenarios where, let's say, the agriculture, and you're tracking supply chain. You can apply it to tracking almost the movement. So in the case of the donation, you would not want to necessarily NFT that donation, because once the donation is made and an NFT points to that donation, maybe it points to a transaction number, let's say a Swift code that confirms that transaction was done, then the NFT sits there and it's not movable beyond that necessarily, right? And same thing with NFTs with supply chain. Once the container has reached its destination, then what good is that NFT? So in many ways, certain use cases will require NFTs that perish, right? So it reaches a destination, and then at that point, you can do what you want with it. I think the important point here is, and maybe you could show ERC 721. So the NFT is at a very basic level, a set of functions, very basic functions that are standardized by what's called ERC 721, which is a standard that we as a community agree on, that and therefore any wallet can interact with that standard. It's just a set of functions. But then beyond that, you can add additional logic that causes an NFT to become defunct, right? It's like, well, if this container has reached its destination, or the end product has reached its destination to the end consumer, the NFT it no longer is transferable. So that's something that we built. I did something similar to that a couple of years ago, where we had an NFT and we built it on a DLT, and then by the time it reached its destination, the NFT could no longer move forward. It could not be transferred anymore. The right to transfer the NFT expired. So you have a base layer of simple functionality. The important thing is you can have the simple functionality of transferring an NFT and have an NFT to point to something unique. In the digital world, it's very easy to point to something unique, like a URL on a computer to a web page. It's very easy to point to that, because you go to a URL on a web page, it's going to go to that one web page. One web page. It's not going to go to any other web page. So in the digital world, the URL scheme works. In the real world, then it requires a little bit more research and figure out how does this work. So I don't know if Jacob, you want to talk about a little bit about what some of the functions are, and you were great at this. When you gave that class in the NFT class, the Solidity class, what are some of the functions? Maybe you can go by one. What's in the ERC 721 in a way, maybe for some of the non-developers that can understand. What are some of the functions, and what are some of the attributes a token has?
Sure. Yeah. All right. So ERC 721, again, it's just a standard for interacting with a smart contract. So a smart contract can actually implement multiple different token standards. It can implement as many different ERCs or whatever as you want, really. So ERC 721 just defines a subset of behavior that a smart contract must support in order to be considered compatible with an ERC 721 standard. And then other people can build applications like OpenSea that interact with contracts that are compatible with the ERC 721 standard. And then OpenSea will read those contracts because it knows how to interact with an ERC 721. So it'll read those contracts, and then it will display that data, and it can interact with them, right? So let's look at what an ERC 721 compatible token must support as far as interactions go. So we're going to skip through the events right now, because we don't care about those right now. And the first one we're going to look at is this one, balance of. So this means that an ERC 721 token, or an ERC 721 compatible smart contract, must support a particular function that goes by the identifier balance of. And what this function does is it is going to tell you how many NFTs that this contract assigns this address as the owner of. That was a terribly agrammatical sentence. Balance of, you give the balance of function a Ethereum address, and the balance of function will tell you how many NFTs that address owns. within the context of the smart contract. So this is not going to tell you all like the number of all of the NFTs you own. It's just going to be, so if this is the CryptoPunks smart contract, it'll tell you how many CryptoPunks you own. If this is the Lost Souls contract, it'll tell you how many Lost Souls you own, right? So pretty simple. Balance of just tells you how many NFTs a particular address owns. And then you kind of have the inverse of that one, where you can say, okay, given this token ID, who owns it? So there's another function that all ERC 721 compatible smart contracts, so basically all NFTs, must support the owner of function, which tells you who is the owner of a particular token. So you give the owner of function a token ID and it will tell you who owns that token. Pretty straightforward, right? You're establishing ownership. And then we have, so safe transfer from, and these guys were not going to care very much about the difference between safe transfer from and the different types of safe transfer and non-safe transfers. All that we care about is transfer from. And yeah, so transfer from, it says, okay, who is the current owner of the token, where are we sending it to, and which token are we talking about? And what this is going to do is it is going to send a token that this from address owns, and it's going to send it to the to address. And all that the ERC 721 token standard says is that the contract must implement this functionality, or it must implement a method that has this signature, really, is all that it's saying, which means that it's not saying anything about how the contract has to do that. So for example, one question you might have is, well, if the function transfer from accepts a from and a to, does that mean that anyone can transfer any token from one address to another? That seems like a security risk. And the answer is ERC 721 doesn't say, well, it kind of says. Technically, all that the standard says is that it must implement this. Now, there is more text attached to the standard, but it's like in English, right? So it's not enforced in code. So it does say here, so it specifies particular behavior here in English, but ERC 721, all that it really is this right here. And if you're going to be compatible more than with just the interface, you have to follow the English text here. But this doesn't, this is not like a solidity requirement, right? So it's up to you as the developer to correctly implement this. So that means it depends on the standard, or it depends on the smart contract, how they've implemented, for example, transfer from. Then we have approve and approval. Will not pay too much attention to approvals. Pretty much that allows the owner of a token to allow someone else to send it to send it. So if I am the owner of an NFT, I can say, Jamiel, I'm going to approve you to send my NFT somewhere. And then I would tell the smart contract, all right, here's Jamiel's address here, and here's the token ID that I'm going to allow him to send on my behalf. And then Jamiel would be able to call transfer from, where the from address is my address, but Jamiel is the one calling it. So approvals are a little bit more in depth. We don't need to pay too much attention to that. So pretty much, if we look here, what the ERC 721 standard says is all NFTs must be able to tell you how many NFTs an address owns, who is the owner of a particular NFT. It must allow you, or it must allow someone to transfer NFTs from one address to another. and it must allow addresses to allow other addresses to send their NFTs for them. So that's kind of roughly 4 things that all NFTs must do. And then we have the events here. These are things that mostly developers use to track things that are going on with the NFTs. So programmers can write programs that will look for transfer events. So a transfer event occurs every time, surprise, an NFT is transferred somewhere. And so programmers can look for those events and then perform some task in their program whenever it sees one of those events happen. Same with approvals, approval for all, so on and so forth. We don't need to pay attention to ERC 165. That's very meta. So we kind of have 4 very basic things that all NFTs must do. And you're probably asking, well, where's the metadata? Because surprise, surprise, just the ERC 721 token standard doesn't actually have any mechanism for reading metadata or associating metadata with a token. So that's where the ERC 721 metadata extension comes along, which is right here. And that attaches a bit more information to all of the NFTs, right? So NFTs right now have to do 4 things. They have to tell us how many NFTs a particular address owns. They have to tell us who the owner of a particular NFT is. They have to allow transfers. So you have to be able to move an NFT from one address to another. And you have to, and NFTs also, or the smart contract must allow you to allow someone else to send your NFTs on your behalf, right? The ERC 721 metadata extension here adds 3 more things that the NFT contracts must do. They must have a name. So in this case, it would be something like CryptoPunks. They must have a symbol, which in the case of like Lost Soul Sanctuary, it's LSS. In the case of CryptoPunks, where is CryptoPunk? Well, in the case of Crypto Sharks, it's Shark. And I actually don't remember the abbreviation for CryptoPunks. Maybe it's Punks. CryptoPunks. I don't know which one of these is real. Maybe this one. Maybe it's Punk then, for example. So you have to specify those 2 pieces of information. So you have to have the name, like CryptoPunks or Lost Soul Sanctuary. You have to have the symbol, which is like wrapped ETH, WETH, or wrapped Bitcoin, or LSS for Lost Soul Sanctuary, or Punk for CryptoPunks. And then here is what we're really interested in is every token ID must be associated with a token URI. So that means that if a smart contract supports the ERC 721 metadata standard as well as the ERC 721 standard, that means it has to do 7 things, right? So, and every NFT that you see, well, on OpenSea is going to implement this standard as well. So that means that our NFTs have to now do 7 things, right? It has to show the balance, has to show the owner, allow transfers, it has to support approvals, it has to have a name, it has to have a symbol, and it has to tell us where to find the metadata file for each token. That's what token URI does. And then here is the description of the ERC 721 metadata right here. So this is where you can give a name to a particular NFT, give a description to a particular NFT, associate an image with a particular NFT. So that is a high-level overview of the ERC 721 standard. Let's see if we have any questions on that. So can the value of, let's see, when did we start here? Let's see. I'll start from right here. Is it possible to update or change the metadata embedded in an NFT? For example, I'm selling a classic car with 10,000 miles and now has 11,000 miles. Can I update the metadata to reflect the increase in mileage? That depends on where you have deployed your metadata. Remember, all that the ERC 721 on chain, all that says is that it must support a token URI. You could add an extension to either allow you to update the token URI, or you could pass in a token URI that you have the ability to change the information that's located at the URI. So if it's an IPFS URI, you're out of luck. You have to update the actual token URI in the contract. If it is a regular like HTTPS:// and then you control the website there, then you probably don't have to update this this token URI right here, and you can just update whatever is being served from that location. So no, you would not have to burn and redeploy the NFT if you implemented it in a way to allow you to update the metadata. So can the next question, so can the value of balance of for an NFT only be 0 or 1? At first that might make sense, but remember, smart contracts, it's not just one NFT that's supported with it. I think I have overloaded the term NFT. That's what I've done. So there are two different things, I guess, that I'm talking about when I say NFT. One of them is the smart contract, right? The smart contract that implements the ERC 721 standard. So that smart contract is able to mint effectively unlimited NFTs or unlimited tokens, an unlimited number of tokens, which means that so here we'll use our art NFTs because they're very easy to visualize. So we have our lost souls right here, right? Now there is one smart contract. There is one lost souls sanctuary smart contract, just one. And that smart contract has issued 10,000 tokens. So let's see. As to whether balance of can only be 0 or 1, there can only be one owner of one of these tokens, right? So there's only one owner of this particular ghost guy, right? Just one. ID 9531. Only one person can own lost soul number 9,531. But that same person could also own this guy, number 3,194, which means that the balance of that address, the person who owns 9,531 and 3,194 would be 2. All right. Can you recommend an NFT smart contract that securely implemented the ERC 721 standard that we can use as a template? There, and the very next comment answers that question perfectly. Open Zeppelin, and so if you want to, you can go and find that on GitHub, download it, and use it. It's great. Or there's an even easier way. I guess it's in between writing all of the code yourself or using a library and still writing the code and like deploying something on OpenSea. And I had it pulled up here, right here, the contract wizards on openzeppelin.com. So here they have, you can just kind of check the boxes on all of the features that you want in your or in your token. It doesn't even have to be a 721. It can be a ERC 20, ERC 721, 1155, governor. And here you just type in what you want the name of your token to be, what you want the symbol of your token to be. We'll talk about base URI in just a little bit. Then you just check the different boxes that you want it to be. So Okay, we'll mint it. We'll auto increment the IDs. Sounds perfect. And we'll make it pausable. So make it so that people can't, or so I can, like, the owner can just say, hold on, something's gone terribly wrong with their contract. Stop all transfers for just a little bit. So make it pausable. That's kind of what that does. And then it'll just generate this little piece of code right here. And even better, you can say open in Remix, and Remix will download all of the dependencies for you. And then you can just launch it in, or deploy it locally here. This is a little technical, but you can just deploy it and just say, for testing purposes, deploy once it compiles. Come on, this file. Oh, come on now. All right, there we go, compile. And then we can just say, why is it not showing it? And we'll just say deploy. Oh, come on, I've selected the wrong one. We'll just say deploy, and then I'll deploy it in browser, and we can play with it here. It's not real, it's just fake. But that's possibly even easier than going and finding all the dependencies and downloading them and writing the code yourself. Is you can just use this little bit right here and generate the contract, and then you can just add the little extra features that you want, and it's all there. It's all done for you. So one little pro tip for you there. Perfect. Does the name have to be unique? Nope, does not have to be unique. There's no way to enforce that. Can you talk about the multi-token standard as well? ERC 1155. So let's look at that. Well, actually, we might want to talk about ERC 20 before that. So ERC 20 is the wonderful fungible counterpart to the ERC 721. And this guy is going to say, all right, you are an address, and I have assigned that you own this many tokens. So they act very much like dollars or Bitcoin or Ethereum, right? It's just, congratulations, you own 5 tokens. And it's just doesn't, yeah. So you're just associating an owner with a number of tokens that they own, instead of a token with the owner of the token. So kind of like flip-flops what you're associating with what. Again, ERC 721, you take the NFT ID, the token ID, and you associate that with the owner. You say, who's the owner of this NFT? That's the owner of this NFT. And then for ERC 20s, you say, all right, how many tokens does this address own? So you're asking a different question. Instead of asking who's the owner of this token, you're asking how many tokens does this person own? We can actually go through the ERC 20 standard right here. And we're going to see a lot of similarities between the ERC 721 and the ERC 20. So ERC 20s, so this specification is just written a little bit differently from the other one, from the 721 one. ERC 20s have to have a name, or they don't have to have a name. These are optional. So they might have a name. They might have a symbol. Again, just like the ERC 721, that was an optional metadata extension. So this is very similar thing. Right, so ERC 20s may have a name. They may have a symbol. They may have decimals. Now, if you're familiar, Bitcoin has 8 decimals. What that means is you can send someone like 0.00000001 Bitcoin, and that's the smallest amount, like that's the smallest amount of divisibility that Bitcoin supports, is 8 decimal places. Ethereum supports 14. So decimals is just the same thing, right? So 8 decimals right here. That's just, it's purely visual. It doesn't actually affect anything because everything is stored as an integer. So all this is purely visual. total supply. So this is how many tokens are in circulation. So if we were implementing Bitcoin on top of as an ERC20, then this would return 21 million. Balance of, very similar to what we saw in the ERC 721. You can ask an ERC20 token, how many tokens does a particular address own? So what's the balance of this owner? This person owns 21 my tokens, or whatever we've decided to call our ERC20. What's the balance of this address? The balance of this address is this. Then we must allow transfers between two addresses. So Bob can send tokens to Alice. Transfer from, this is very similar to what we saw in the ERC 721. This is used in the case of like approvals, which is, ERC 20 support approvals as well. So this just allows someone else to transfer tokens from one address to another address where they're not necessarily the owner, but they have been approved by the owner to spend some tokens. So you can, so very straightforward how that works. And then we have a couple of events as well for the programmers. But yeah, so we see that ERC 20 tokens support some very similar things to ERC 721s. So you have a name, we have a symbol, we have decimals. That's how divisible the token is. Total supply, how many tokens are there running around? Balance of, how many tokens does this address own? Transfer, we're going to allow Alice to send tokens to Bob. Transfer from means if Bob has allowed Alice to send tokens, now Alice can send some of Bob's tokens to Charlie. And approve means that Bob can allow Alice to spend up to X number of Bob's tokens. And allowance allows you to check how many of those tokens you're allowed to spend. So that is how ERC 20 works. And now let's look at 1155. 1155, the multi-token standard. Ooh, scary. All right, so the ERC 1155 is a standard interface. I'm just going to read this. Standard interface for contracts that manage multiple token types. So you have one contract that manages more than one token type. So remember, if we have like an ERC 721 token, it's just going to manage, like it can issue 1,000 NFTs, but they're all CryptoPunks, or they're all Lost Souls, or they're all my new certificate that I am issuing to people from my educational institution, or they're all of the same category, right? But ERC 1155 allows you to manage multiple token types. A single deployed contract may include any combination of fungible tokens, non-fungible tokens, or other configurations. For example, semi-fungible tokens. Semi-fungible tokens are really fun. They're like concert tickets. I think that's like the only instance that I've heard of semi-fungible tokens. I've never implemented them before, but it's like a concert ticket where the concert ticket doesn't have anything unique attached to it until you actually go to the concert, and then you're like assigned a particular seat, and then it becomes like non-fungible or something like that. I haven't used them before, so I'm not super familiar. But anyways, 1155 allows you to manage multiple and as many as you want. So it's not just, oh, you can have a fungible and a non-fungible token. You could have 50 different non-fungible tokens managed by 1155. So let's take a look here at what this implements. All right, so we have our events, lots of events, don't care quite so much. We've seen safe transfer from before, but you're seeing, let's see here. We're seeing, we don't care about this data parameter quite so much, but we do have this extra parameter right here, which is the ID of the token type, right? We've already seen the from, the to, and the value, but now we have this extra ID, right? So it says here, transfer value amount of an ID from the from to the to address, specified with safety call. We don't care about that. What we care about is just this piece right here. it transfers X number of ID token from address to the to address. This is just getting like really meta. We're allowing, well, not meta, we're adding another layer of abstraction, right? So before, when we implemented a non-fungible token, it was associated, or that smart contract was associated with a single name. So where's my smart contract for these guys right here? I guess I'll just open up another tab. All right. So before, one smart contract would have one symbol, would have one name. It was managing one set of NFT tokens, right? 1155 allows one smart contract to be like generalized to manage more than one. So we don't have this hard one-to-one relationship between a smart contract and a token type. Now, one smart contract can manage many different token types that it's managing with this ID here. Let's see. Balance of, we've seen that before, and approvals. So we don't care about that very much. And we have a bunch of different scenarios here. But for the most part, I think we have a lot of exceptions here. Oh yes, our metadata extension. So we have our URI, very similar to NFTs, how that worked before. So a distinct URI for a given token. And then here's the metadata standard for that. Lots of extra stuff we don't need to go through. And that's how, I think that's pretty much everything we need to go through here. Yep. So that's 1155. Is it pretty much very simply, you add the ID of the token you're trying to transfer, and that ID must be an ID that the smart contract is managing. So then you can transfer multiple different types of tokens. The smart contract just manages multiple different types of tokens that are designated by a particular ID. That's ERC 1155. How many of this particular NFT do you own, or how many NFTs do you own in total? I actually don't own any digital art NFTs. So if you were worried like, oh, I'm talking about Lost Souls because I own Lost Souls, I do not own any Lost Souls. This is just a friend of mine who I met, who is an artist for this project, and I thought it was a cool project, and their smart contract was very simple and easy to read, so I thought it would make a great example for this workshop. Is builder/factory NFT contract a better name? Oh, like where I was overloading the term NFT. Maybe. I just call it like the NFT contract and then the NFT tokens, non-fungible tokens, whatever. What will happen if you try to deploy something with a name that already exists? Not much. How much does it cost to mint 10,000 NFTs? Is it cheaper for Polygon NFTs? Yes, it is cheaper for the Polygon NFTs.
Just one thing about the name of a token. Generally on a blockchain, the name of a token is not a reserved element, right? It's not like a domain name that there's
not at all.
Yeah, so like you can name your token the name of an existing popular token and say, well, I'm going to call it the same thing, and actually that's what people do to like perpetrate scams. So there's no way to reserve a name, say, well, that name is mine. There are some tokens out there, for example, there are security tokens that have registries where there is a smart contract that I think it's the ST100, where you register a name of the token, let's say the ticker and all that, and then it's registered. But that's by agreement by parties that are willing to agree to that. and you don't necessarily have to agree to that. So you can have, and this is true of ERC20, this is true of ERC71, you can have a token called ABC, and then I can have a token called ABC as well. Let's say you do really, really well. Well, I'll say, well, you know what, I'm going to try to piggyback over that a little bit. And I created a token called ABC as well. There's nothing there to stop me from doing that. The blockchain's not going to say, well, that token name is already, it doesn't even know, the blockchain doesn't really care or know about the concept. All it is you putting it on the ledger that I'm creating a token called ABC as well. Just like you can put it in multiple rows of a database that have the same content.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's nobody enforcing uniqueness on the name or the symbol. It's pretty much just the honor system. And if someone sees that you have, the symbol that you've decided to use for your token is BTC, they're going to raise some questions there. So, just try and choose a name in good faith and make it unique to the best of your ability. But I mean, we're talking about usually 3 or 4 letter combinations. And by now, I'm sure all of them have been used at least once. So you just have to pick one and run with it and try not to invade someone else's space, but it's hard when you're dealing with, you only have 26 letters and you're dealing with 3 to 4 letter long symbols. So it's just going to happen. As far as how expensive it is to mint 10,000 NFTs, it depends, because they're actually, if we go back to the 721 standard here, there is not a minting function in the ERC 721 standard. If you see here, I'm like searching for mint, right? It's just like, it's mentioned once here when it literally says it's not included in the specification, right? Minting is not part of the specification. So how expensive it is to mint 10,000 NFTs is in a way sort of up to the person who writes the contract. It's largely up to them. There's going to be like a base gas fee, but you could, for example, say, when I deploy the contract, like the constructor mints 10,000 NFTs, or you could say the default owner, like if there isn't already an owner assigned to this NFT, the owner is this person. And then that would make it really, really cheap. If you just set a default owner, it would make it really, really cheap to issue 10,000 NFTs because you don't actually have to initialize all of that storage and pay for updating all the storage. That's because updating and reading from storage in Solidity is really expensive. But if you were to, for example, just set a default owner, then you have quote unquote minted 10,000 NFTs that all have the same owner. So that could be really cheap. But if you are going to like use like Open Zeppelin's safe mint function and do each of those mints one by one in separate transactions, that's going to be really expensive. As for how much cheaper it is on Polygon, I just deployed an NFT contract a week or 2 ago on Polygon because it would have cost almost $300 in Ethereum to deploy it on mainnet. So I deployed it on, and that was just for the deploy transaction. That was when gas fees, so it was like right after the London hard fork. If you're not familiar with that, doesn't matter. Just they made some changes to the gas fees and gas prices went crazy. It was going to be almost $300. So instead, I transferred. I got some Matic on the Polygon network, and the contract deployment fee was half of a cent in Matic tokens. So from almost $300 on mainnet to half of a cent on Polygon. Caveat, you have to jump through hoops for people, like anyone who wants to use a contract deployed on Polygon has to jump through a couple of hoops in order to use it. You have to do some custom MetaMask configuration. The other thing is it cost about $60 in fees and stuff to actually get Matic tokens. So it still costs a decent amount of money. It's not completely free. So it costs about $60 to get Matic tokens, but then about half of a cent to actually call the contract deploy.
So the phrase "you do the math" doesn't even apply. Like, you don't even have to do the math. It's fractions. So we had the Polygon guy come in a couple of weeks ago. We'll have the VP of growth of Polygon coming in on Saturday, talking about Polygon. So I think great question to ask him about that as well there. But yeah, it's fractions, pennies.
Yeah, it's very, very cheap. The problem is just getting the Matic tokens in the first place, right? And then making sure that people can use them. I'm not going through these questions fast enough. How long do we have until?
I think we got another 15 minutes. We got to wrap it up. So,
all right.
Yeah.
All right. All right, I'll just scroll through here. Where do we get a wallet? Wallets are generated using a public and private key pairs. If you download the MetaMask browser extension, it'll make one for you. It's free and doesn't cost you anything. Yeah. What happens if you send ERC20 tokens from one wallet to the same wallet? Does it just burn gas and the wallet token value remains the same? I think it depends on, well, it probably depends on the implementation of the ERC20. Yeah, nothing really would change. You just burn gas. It's possible that the implementer of the contract would make that would actually revert the transaction and say you can't send tokens that you already own to yourself in an effort to like save gas, something like that. It would still like burn some gas, but yeah, it would just burn gas. What graphic tools are used to programmatically generate 10,000 images for these generative NFT projects? Great question. I am not an artist, so I don't know. Sorry. Is it a good idea for a business to purchase?
Just a note on that question that Peter's asking. I think I've seen that question before, but you can use GANs, right? You can use Python to do GANs type of stuff and generate a ton of variations of images, and that's one, that's one possibility. Especially if these images are very simple, like these are cartoon images. These are not human faces, which would take a lot more computing power. But you can do a GANs thing, and you would obviously have to you have to train it and all that. But you could start with that, and you could produce, if you get it right, you could produce a ton of these images. I'm not saying that that's how they do it, but that's one approach.
Yeah. Is it a good idea for a business to purchase a domain name, for example, from Unstoppable Domains? That would be a business decision. Unstoppable Domains, I think, are only supported natively in Brave browser right now. So up to you to make that call. How long does it take for token drops to happen if doing so on third parties like Coinvice? I'm not sure what Coinvice is, so I'm not sure I can answer that question. If you're asking how long it would take like an ERC20 token or an ERC721 transfer to happen, shouldn't take any longer than a regular, any other transaction really. And we can see those transaction times if we go on Etherscan, etherscan.io right here. We can see those if we look at our Gas Explorer right here. We'll see the average speed of a transaction. So we're looking at like 10 minutes if you're being cheap on gas, or it could be as fast as 3 minutes if you're willing to spend a little bit more on gas. That's just how long it takes transactions to get through the network. If deployed on Polygon, will the NFTs be accessible everywhere Ethereum NFTs are available? So the reason why you have to jump through a couple of hoops is, so if I want to say MetaMask configure Polygon right here, This is what you have to type into your MetaMask in order to use Polygon. But then once you do this, then it's the same as any other. It's the same as regular Ethereum. So you say like Matic, mainnet, yes, RPC, mainnet, maticdigital.com, chain ID 137, and block explorer URL. Oh no, currency symbol, Matic, block explorer URL, polygonscan.com. And there we go. Now I can use Polygon on this MetaMask, just like any other Ethereum. And then NFTs, everything will work just fine. How can we get in touch? DM me on not Instagram, on Twitter. DM me on Twitter. All right.
Hey Jacob, can we do can you go to charge.fi? Just like to show this to everybody.
Charge.fi, like here?
Yeah, charge D with a D, charge to D.
Oh, charge.
Yeah. Exactly. This is an interesting project, and I personally am working on a project similar to this, which I can't really talk about too much. But this is a fantastic use case, which I urge you guys, if you're on the business side, that you can go through the documentation. But what they do is basically they take an NFT and they convert it into, it's basically the NFT acts like a bucket, right? And so it's basically like this basket. And you put into it ERC20 tokens, right? And these tokens have yield. So let's say there's a token, there's a compound token, or there's an Aave token and things like that. You kind of bundle it into these NFTs, and then those NFTs are tradable, right? So this is an example of a use case that's not related to art, where you're taking NFTs and are applying it in the DeFi space, which is. So I'm working on something similar. I don't want to talk about what I'm working on because this is not the right forum, and I don't like to talk about stuff. I don't think it's the right thing to do here. But I think this is a great example of kind of like, hey, what can I do with NFTs that are not necessarily related to art here? And I think if you click on the documentation there, the documentation there, and yeah, I think this is a great. Like the first 1-2 paragraphs really explain here. You can take a scarce NFT, it could be real estate, anything, and then you can put a bunch of NFTs or a bunch of ERC20 tokens inside of an NFT. So you have this kind of a portfolio motif, right? So you're basically creating a portfolio, and then you're able to trade that portfolio, and so that the portfolio itself has valuation. Its valuation itself can fluctuate. And itself is tradable. I think this is kind of one of the, and we can get the charge particle guys to come in and do a presentation. If you guys want, just message me or say this would be something interesting. But this is a DeFi view on NFTs.
Mm-hmm. Great, yeah. So this is kind of like associating. It's kind of like using an NFT to identify your investment portfolio. Is that correct?
Well, what is you create an NFT and then you identify a bunch of ERC20 tokens, and then you basically are depositing those ERC20 tokens into the NFT, right? Mm-hmm. NFT is kind of a container. It's just a bucket. I mean, how it's done behind the scenes, it's a little bit involved, but that's what it is. So instead of an NFT pointing to like a piece of artwork on IPFS, here you have NFTs that are pointing to like a bunch of ERC20s, right? Mm-hmm. Effectively, right? And then if the ownership of the NFT changes, the ownership of those ERC20s change as well.
Oh, okay. So it's a way to like group together all of these assets and then transfer them as a bundle.
Exactly. So it's a portfolio, right? So a portfolio is just a bundle of assets. And in this case, it's other ERC20s or other tokens. And they've expanded that. So the NFT holds other NFTs, other ERC20s, other ERC 1155, and you can just kind of bundle it. So it's you're building a container system to hold other digital assets. And I think we'll see down the road in the future that ERC20s and all that is basically how all of finance is done, right? So equities would be, let's say, the ERC20, owning that ERC20 represents an ownership in a company. And then you take those ERC20s and you break them down and maybe you allocate them in tranches and all that.
Very interesting. Yeah, I hadn't heard of that before. It's pretty cool. It looks like my time is pretty much up. 5 minutes left, so I want to make sure that we still have time for like an outro, closing and stuff, whatever you guys want to say. I'll just say thank you so much for coming. I really enjoyed talking to you all about NFTs. Let's see, I just finished teaching through BAF, the Web3 teacher training program, which is kind of, it's like a supercharged DApp development program where not only do you learn how to develop decentralized applications, so from smart contract to the web application, but you also learn how to reteach those skills to others. So highly recommend you check out the Blockchain Acceleration Foundation and everything that we're doing there. You can contact me on Twitter. It's at pseudo_build, or you can email me at Jacob. Here, I'll just type it in the chat, jacob@baf.network. Right there. Yeah. Oh, yep. Thank you, Alexis. So we did record the pilot cohort of the Web3 teacher training track. That's on YouTube now. So make sure to go check out that playlist. And we are looking at running another cohort of that soon, fingers crossed. So yeah, I think that's just about all I have. Feel free to contact me anytime with questions about NFTs or Solidity programming, Web3 programming, anything and everything. Always more than happy to talk to you guys.
Okay, thank you so much, Jacob. That was fantastic. We're going to wrap it up for tonight. I gotta go get some dinner. Thank you all for coming tonight. And I want to thank the BAF Network and ETHBuilders for their support, especially Kenneth and Alexis for supporting us on this. We're going to have this recording available in multiple locations, including on YouTube and on the Blockchain NYC Slack. If you want to download it for yourself, it'll be available there. Okay, guys, thank you so much and have a great night.